Yeah, so for today, and I might not have a lot of, so once I kind of get started, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to flip back and forth and see you guys really well. If something comes up or you have a question, just unmute yourself and just kind of interrupt me in a bit of an appropriate time, so that we can that I can respond. Okay? Because I'm kind of dealing now with, like, all my output is going through InDesign and OBS, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get any notifications from Zoom while we're discussing this. Anyway, so for this week, I wanted to kind of continue to kind of follow up a little bit on what we discussed last week. Since we have more or less 4 classes before the sprint starts, there were a couple of other things that I thought would be kind of wild and interesting to kind of show you guys related to InDesign. So I'm actually focusing a little bit more on that, and then so next week we're gonna continue to follow up on looking into XD and then After Effects. Yeah. So basically for today, a couple of things that I wanted to do, and there might be some recaps in from last week, is that I want to discuss and show you guys how we can work with InDesign book files to kind of organize larger amounts of files, or even if you would like to make a publication that has even different sections or different baseline grids, so that we can show you how you would be able to organize that, because a baseline grid is something you actually can only kind of set in your preferences per document, so it's not something that you can basically swap around. There's a way around it a little bit. What I discussed last week is by using different types of object styles, and those text boxes can have their own baseline grids. But basically, once you want to continue and even extend to having, let's say, different formats of paper or foldings or different baseline grids, you're actually going to need to split your book up in a publication, split it up in multiple InDesign files. So, besides InDesign book, I'm going to kind of dive in again into the paragraph styles and show you a little bit the power of GREP, some find and replace tricks that I use a lot that are very convenient. And if we have time, I would like to kind of show you some stuff about Datamerge, which is kind of more of a slightly more recent feature that actually gives you a lot of potential and tools to use data in the form of, let's say, an Excel sheet or a comma separated file. Loads of data stuff that you can find, let's say, on the web, that could be beneficial to kind of use as a content for a book, or how you could even, with that setup, you can make almost like a content management system in a Google Sheet, and then do a direct import in your InDesign files. Okay, so let's dive into InDesign. Okay, here we go. So if all goes well, you'll probably see this kind of zoomed in version of InDesign right now. If not, I had to kind of dodge it a little bit, you saw that. Let me know. But so basically we are back in the same kind of noisy test file that I was working in last week, where we discussed, let's say, these paragraph styles, character styles, and object styles, so that when we kind of zoom in, that we saw that we had basically different types of baseline grids on top of each other, but still kind of corresponding to the basic InDesign baseline grid of this document. So the baseline grid was connected to these paragraph styles, and here was a kind of an example of some kind of side note that had a different setting of a baseline grid inside an object style as well. So basically what, when we discuss InDesign books, is actually when you make a new file, of course you have, let's say, the option of a document, a book, or a library. Library, let's not go into that right now, but so there's a very interesting feature here, which is that you can make a, let's say, an InDesign book file. Let's call it class book. And so basically this little nifty thing is nothing more than an empty kind of framework where you can collect different items in. So if I would go to, where is it here? I'm now using this document, so I can open this. You see that it automatically adds it here as an InDesign file, shows me the amount of pages here. And in this case also it is open because it's the one we're currently working in. But I can just, let's say, add two others. And so what's nice about this is that you're able to kind of string different items on top of each other. And when, for instance, you would go to your pages, and I would, let's say, go to my, where am I here? I'm going to my number and section options. So this is set to automatic page numbering. And what it does is, of course, that it just automatically kind of points out your pages here. But the great thing is also that it kind of calculates them through from every document, so on. So in the end, if you would make a book, let's say, and one part of the book is, let's say, some essays, and then there is going to be a whole part about photography with a lot of images, and then there's going to be an interview, for instance. You can kind of make the grids and make the master pages how I explained them last week, to kind of organize them in different sections of the book. So that gives you the kind of ability to also organize it, let's say, if that can be convenient, that if you would work with different types of paper in a normal print situation, you would be actually always, you have to organize this in structures of, let's say, 16 or 8 pages more commonly. You could go for 12 or 20, but let's say in most cases every signature of a book is made out of 16 pages. So if you would want to have, let's say, kind of switch and mix and go from one paper to the other, you can of course organize that in your same kind of document, and then know, like, or mark, let's say, from page 17 to 32, my master page just changes or something happens which will determine that those pages will be printed on a different material. But in this case, what is nice about this is that you could also say, well, the first 32 pages will be on this paper, the other will be on the other paper. And sometimes it would also make it easier to, let's say, print out different sections on different papers if you would kind of produce a dummy inside school, or put it to also kind of position it into position it as a booklet, so that after the folding they kind of match up. So basically the good thing is also that if you would decide halfway to kind of say, you know what, I'm gonna do the photography at the end, you can just kind of just drag and drop and reorder it, and it automatically updates also the page numbers in those documents. So if I would now open this document, so you can also double click and then it opens the document directly. You can also see that now this document starts at page 45. So that's actually pretty convenient, and it's actually a tool that can be super helpful. It's a small little thing that I just wanted to kind of point out to you guys. And it's not really it's not a complicated feature. The only thing that is really powerful about it and can be tricky is that last week we were discussing, let's say, master pages. So we have the master pages, we have paragraph styles, character styles, object styles, swatches, all these kind of things that are kind of defined inside a document. But once you're starting to work, and then even if you would have multiple documents, you could make, let's say, changes from one document to the other, and you might forget, or the same thing happens that you structured a book in different InDesign files, but then all of a sudden you kind of realize, hey, I've changed the paragraph styles, but hey, the other parts that were in the same book, but they are connected in this InDesign book file, they of course don't get automatically updated. The great thing about this InDesign book feature is also that in this case is that you can take a style source here. So in this case, my first document here has this little icon which determines that it indicates the style source. So if we go to the let's say the synchronize options here, you can determine that actually the same as a master page. That the master page is this first page that then chains up to all the other ones, is that you can also chain them up in documents in that kind of same respect. So for instance, in the synchronize option, I can, let's say, also add like master pages, styles and swatches, so table styles, all these styles that you can normally kind of set in one document, they can be synchronized. So what happens is that, for instance, in this second one that I have here, which is kind of an older, kind of another version of that same document, but you see, it still has a different typeface, and probably on the master pages there were also some different settings. So if I would actually think of, oh, you know what, this new one is actually, you know, it looks way cooler, this is actually what I want. In order to kind of then update, you can just select these and say, which is harder for you to see right now, wait, I'll do it like here. So you can, all the way up here, synchronize book. So if I do that and run it, okay, so. And now if I open test 2, you see it automatically updated everything according to the specifications that I made in this document and applied it to that second document, which is super convenient. But, and there's a way I can save the book. But that also means that you have to really kind of be careful about the paragraph styles and the changes that you make. Because if you would have made, let's say, somewhere some kind of exception and you created a variation of this paragraph style and you tweak something for one article, I don't know, whatever. And you would then hit this synchronize button. It will synchronize it through the entire book, and there's no way back. So there's no Command Z for this. So you could also potentially screw up everything. Of course, you can then think about, oh, what were the original specs? Put that first document back in the correct kind of order, and then synchronize again. But it can get really messy, so it's very powerful, but also be really clear and know exactly when to press this button and when definitely not to press this button. Okay. Next up, I'm gonna first let's see. I'm gonna just quickly disable this motherfucker, and also. Where are you? In here. Disable. And disable. Okay. Why is it again showing? I don't want to have this right now. Way up. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay. So that basically kind of covers this kind of small section about InDesign books. Are there questions so far about this?
In the case if there's like a pop-up, is there something like an autosave just like with Premiere Pro for InDesign? I don't think so, right?
What do you mean by Premiere Pro? Or you mean InDesign?
Yeah, no, with Premiere Pro you have like an autosave file on your computer and it just autosaves like kind of every 30 minutes.
No. And in the case how we tend to work with InDesign, you should be very thankfully that there's no autosave function, because usually you're kind of doing a lot of stuff in between that hopefully won't end up being saved in between. But no, there's no such thing. So it's really nice to be able to kind of like string a lot of InDesign files to each other. And also, for instance, when you kind of collaborate on things. In the studio, for me, I use this, for instance, a lot for working with the Metropolis M, is that every article has its own InDesign file. Because I have an editor-in-chief that quite oftenly kind of makes up its mind and think, no, this article actually should go before that article or that, and then, or else I would need to kind of drag pages back and forth. So basically that allows me for kind of a more flexible kind of workflow. But yeah, I'm always kind of like scared that something changes and then someone presses this synchronize button, and that can just kind of like cause for a bit of a mess at a moment that usually you don't want this. So keep that in mind. Any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. Then let's continue. So let's see. I'm gonna save this, go back to here. I'm gonna close you for a bit and close you. Let's save. So basically, next up, what I wanted to show you is something extremely simple but very powerful in order for you guys to also save some time. Is for instance a feature to just import text. And basically when you import text on, let's say, a Word file, there could be that there's a lot of italics in there, and basically I also know from experience, I did it myself for years, or I saw it in student work, is that if there are italics, then probably you're going to place it and put it all in this specific, let's say, paragraph styles. Then look inside the Word document and then try to find every italic and then put it in the character style of italic, so to say. So in this case, let's say we have this text, and if I open my character styles, where are you? Okay, so I have a character style that is here, and if I would just say that it doesn't have any specification other than italic, it will take the font from the paragraph style and find the accordingly kind of like the italic to it.
It's still a little bit zoomed in, I think. I don't see the whole...
Okay, good that you point this out. I have to really drag it here. Right? Okay. So what I did in the basic character formats, if I know in which typeface I'm working, I can of course select it. But if I leave this clean and I only format it as italic, it will take whatever paragraph style is used on the text and find the italic version of that typeface automatically in here. So in this case, I am using this nice 1950s Volta that Sandra Kassenaar introduced me to. Very nice, crazy typeface. It's somewhere from, I think, 57 or something. So this is Volta Bold and regular, so it's really a bad example because this, let's say, body text doesn't have that. So let's just find something that has a italic. Hello, 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 what shall we do? Let's go for something a bit, let's take this one. Okay. So I now placed all my text as a paragraph style, which was the first, it was the first paragraph style in line. So that means that all my other text, my subtitles, but also my captions, they are all set in, and this should go into footnote, okay. They're now all set in this typeface, the Pressura from Grilli-Type, and this is my intro. So if I now would kind of like select this word and I would go to my character style, so I say italic, and then in this case it was a light italic. I can also just say GT Pressura light italic. Okay, so now when this is selected as an italic character style, it will place them automatically in the italic. But of course, then you have to kind of select, find the word, put it in italic, and then hopefully you won't miss out on any of them. So there's a nice kind of trick to do this, and basically what I can show you is that if I would, I'm going to use the Metropolis as an example. So I have, let's say, a document. What do we have here? Here we have something here by Alex de Massillac. and I already see that it has, of course, it has a couple of italics here. Okay, let's try to kind of work with this. So just as you can like import images, you can also import text. So I can, let's say, let's see if we can kind of squeeze this down a little bit. Come here. Yes. Where are we? Yes, that was it. I'm going to put my show import options and have that on. So what it asks is that I can already ask for it to include footnotes. I use typographer's quotes, that it has a kind of nice, good brackets for the quotes. Okay, preserve the styles and formatting from the text. So, or else it would already kind of take away and delete all my italics. So I'm taking this out for now and say...
Can you put it up again a little bit?
Yeah. You... like this. I think that probably once I open something else... yeah. It starts in the middle, I have to drag it all the way up here. So by default could be said that you can instantly import footnotes, but in this case the only thing is that you see that it preserves the styles and formatting from the text and the tables, so that it will not kind of delete any of the formatting of the original text. And there's if I just kind of like, let's import it here on the side. So I get the text in here. One main aspect that you have to keep in mind in order to make this work is what I do before I import these texts is that I just open it up in for instance, Word or other word processing document program, and then I set everything to the regular times. So if you just select all and then set it to times, not times regular or italic, just only in the top type in times, it will place everything in Times Roman or times Roman, and the italics will be set to times italic, but it will keep this formatting. And that's important because that's actually the part where we kind of what we need to do in order to find this formatting. So basically, if we have this text, it now has everything set. You can see it's in times, and also here, this is now set to times italic, and this is times regular. That was it. Yeah. So what I can do is that I can, let's say, select everything, and I'm going to now go to Command F, find and replace, find change. And what I can do is that I'm going to not search for a word to replace, but I'm going to find a formatting. So here, in the formatting setup, I press this find formatting. So I'm opening up this one, and then in the basic character formats. So basically, this is almost the same as your style sheets or your style sheet setting. I can say, well, find times italic, okay, and change that into format. So here I'm going to say character style italic, and we leave this. We always start with finding and excluding the italics first, and then the body tag. So basically, I can say, well, find next, and then probably it found already somewhere, but I can, in this case, I can also say, well, change all. It found 7 replacements made. Okay, thanks. So probably here in the background, it already did that, but since it doesn't have a paragraph style yet, I can now say, find times regular, and then change this in the character style none, and in this case I'm going to set it to body text. Okay, change all, 8 replacements made. Change all. Wait, I did it on the selection. Stupid. You could either say the whole document or story. So if I change all, okay, that sounds more like it. And actually I will need to go back. Wait, let's see what it did. So here you can already see, because I did it on a selection, it kind of didn't do everything, but there's now parts that are in Roman and parts that are in italic. So maybe just to kind of make it clear again, I'm gonna just import that one more time. And this time I'm gonna select all of them. So let's search for the document and start again by finding the italic and changing it to the character style italic and paragraph style set to any style. Change all. Okay. And now I'm going to find the regular, change this into none, and this into body text. Change all. Funny, maybe there is something in the formatting wrong, because it still only applies to a little part. So something I probably kind of now overlooked. The great thing also about this feature is that these are kind of repeating things that you can quite often have to kind of reuse, depending on how many times you're gonna work with, let's say, a copy that someone gives you. And so also the trick is that you can, these queries, you can also save them. So in this case, for me, for the Metropolis, I can just open any text, and I'm gonna just go back and import this again. So if I now go in my list of queries and I'm gonna say, oh, I'm gonna find the Eldorado italics, so times italic, and I'm going to say, where are you? Oh yeah. And I have one that says Eldorado body text. Okay, here I'm going to say body text, change all, done. And then still something didn't work. Wow, it's an amazing example that I'm trying to show you, that maybe something was already set here in this character styles or something. Yeah. Common issue is that when you click on your background and this is set to italic, it kind of takes this as a default setting. So if I now drag and create a new text frame, it will already instantly put everything in this character style italic, which is what you don't want. Let's check this also here, just to be safe. Basic paragraph style. So try this again. So basically, yeah, so now there's not any formatting going on here. So hopefully I'm not gonna screw this example up. Okay, let's say back to selection because I selected everything, change all, okay. Then go to my body text. It gives this kind of extra kind of warning because of course normally in the Metropolis I use another typeface which it cannot find in this text right now. That's why it kind of gives me this pop-up. And I assign this to the body text. Change all. Ah, this is apparently not my day because it didn't do what I wanted you to see, because still this is not completely set to the body text. And if and you can also see that, for instance, here now some of it is set to the body text and it did it already correct here, but probably it could also be that in the original file that there was something kind of formatted, could be even in times bold or something that it didn't kind of find, so that's why it kind of ruled this one out. But at least you kind of understand that, like looking at this here, it did find, let's say, the correct kind of italics and place them in our style sheets.
Can I just ask again, how do you do the import? Like, what is maybe the shortcut?
The import, oh yeah, I'm using shortcuts, huh? It's find and change. So basically if you go to type, I think, sometimes it's good that you point this out because I'm so adjusted to working in my shortcuts that I sometimes forget where is it that I actually kind of what I should show you. Edit probably, wasn't it? Yeah, under edit, find change. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, so you know, this is just for kind of showing you guys how you can automate, let's say, importing text and creating something that you keep all the italics. So you basically can, if you would have 10,000 words or 200 pages of text, it could be like a colossal amount of work to really scan every line to see, oh yeah, there's one word of italic here. Which makes it like a really annoying task to do. And in this way you can really kind of automate it. And I'm gonna check this out anyway, just to see why there was this part that everything is set to times. So I don't know why it didn't do so properly as I wanted to showcase it to you guys. So that is, let's say, that find and replace, and of course, which is also great when you think about this text box. So again, let's go there again. I'm going to edit, find and change. There are also some prefab queries that are always in there, which are also sometimes very convenient ones that people might not even think about. For instance, there are things like a multiple return to single return. So if you have a text file where, in order to create some white space, people kind of pressed enter a lot of times, you can say, well, then it gives this little codes, which is more of the same code that we're going to discuss later on for GREP. It is actually almost like a little Unix or Linux kind of snippet. That finds exactly this. So you have a list of parameters here that you can find and search. that I'm not going to go into right now. But in this case, you could say, well, in this whole document, find anywhere that there are like multiple paragraph breaks behind each other. So if I do change all, you see it, even find 5 ones. Okay, thanks. Or multiple spaces to single space. Like prior, I would like have documents, and then there would be maybe spaces. Then I would need to find like space, space, replace into one space, or space, 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 find that, like 3 spaces, and change them into one space. So there's sometimes a lot of pollution in these documents that you get. You need to take them out. But in this case, it's actually kind of a GREP query that formulates this for you, that it just says, if there are more than 1 spaces, doesn't matter if there's like 2 or 50, bring them back to a single space. So it's sometimes very handy that when you start, or you think at the end, oh, I'm going to clean up my document, you can always kind of run this query, but because there's a lot of these texts that often have multiple spaces. So this is this kind of strange grep string, this code, that actually says find any multiple spaces in a row and change them to a single space. So change all. No, there were no. Perfect, done. So there are some interesting parts here that you can kind of find. And so sometimes for specific books, if I find something that I think that I'm gonna repeat over and over, I'm gonna just save them for myself, so I always have a quick access to them. So that is the find and replace function in InDesign. Next up, what I wanted to show you is GREP. GREP is already been part of InDesign for a while, but it's actually a very unique feature that, let's get this here. Yes. So basically, GREP is let's say it's a regular expression, and there are some very interesting things because you can go away. You can really find a lot of kind of nice little kind of scripted lines that can help you out big time if you are you want to automate some things. So what it can do is, let's say, if you would want to put every character that is placed between 2 brackets and put that in italic, for instance, GREP can do that instead of this kind of manual find and replace. So there's some really nice things about these regular expressions that you can use in, and there's tons of like cheat sheets and kind of like where you can find a lot of them. So basically, for this, what we can do is that we can access these also and automate them inside our paragraph styles. So if I would go to body text and for instance here, let's see if that still fits. Yep. So we have this tab GREP style. I can create multiple GREP codes or lines here that could accommodate any kind of need. So if I make a new one, it just makes this bar, and what it does is that, for one, this applies a style. So this is a character style that you can appoint to whatever you're looking for. And the nice thing about GREP is that it actually runs in real time. So it's not like a find and replace, that's something you do once, like, oh, find this, replace it by that. No, it actually is kind of a live thing that is then part of your paragraph style. So even if you would change things later on and you could still kind of, it would overrule that. So it always applies even this grep on top of content. So as an example, I made, I can make a new one, or I can, let's make a new one just as a test. So if I would make a kind of grep character style 1. And so what I can do is that, for instance, we are using this GT Pressura light. Our body text was 9, but so let's say if I use 15, only I'm gonna make it bigger. So I can point this out. So in this setup here, you can kind of make the commands of what you want to find and what you're going to look for. So in this case, just to give you a simple idea, if let's say if there's a word that comes out, oh yeah, of course, this is all Latin. But okay, let's say I'm going to find cabor. So you can also even make a library of things, but in this case I'm going to say cabor. So what I can now do, if I put this preview on, put it on the side, you instantly see that cabor has been given this character style. Okay, so this is just one thing, but I can also say, oh, instead of just using one word, I can also use something that says or. Oh wait. So here I have cabor, and this straight slash is actually defines or. So I can also say, well, if it also would like to need to find autem, then it finds if there is a cabor or an autem, then place them into, let's say, this character style. So these are now part of our character style, and you don't see them because grep is overruling them, but of course there is, let's say, this character style that I just made. So once I have this grep in place that it does something that I would like to do, I can then later on, as a design, I can just kind of tweak that. So I can also say it needs to be bigger, or I'm gonna change that only this specific words. I'm going to change the typeface, make it a bit more delicate, and I'm going to track it by 150. Okay. So now if I kind of have a kind of a closer inspection on this, you can see that these words have their own unique kind of styling. And if I go back to my paragraph style body text, I'm going back to my grep. I can also say, well, I'm going to make a new one. I'm also going to point this to my new created character style. And I can also say, in these positive, like I sometimes use this a lot because mainly when I have a typeface that I like, but I don't like the length of the em dash, or I don't like the question mark. I don't know, there could be all kinds of reasons that I want to tweak stuff a bit. I could of course open up the font or make a new font or tweak that. But I can also say, you know what, I'm going to just make a grep and set it to all the punctuation. So if I look at the preview right now, then you can see that every question mark or comma or point is automatically set in a typeface, which if you think of our work, That means actually that if you would want to do this manually, it would take you a shitload of time to have the control, that kind of really delicate kind of control over your typography. Because you can do basically, you can mix and match all kinds of fonts then all of a sudden. Let's say use the capitals of this font with the body of that font, use the interpunction of that font, and to almost like make a kind of an assembly that would be, yeah, just painstakingly too much of labor to do that all manually. So I can say I'm going to do that, or I can also create a new one just for the sake of this example. But you already kind of see the power, and in this case it's punctuation, but I can say alpha numerals, the digits. So in this case, if I would select this one, let's see if there's somewhere, if there is some, there's probably no digits here. Ah yeah, there was a footnote here. So here it's now, and what I mentioned before about the fact of this being live, if I just start to kind of type on top of this, so I'm going to say a 2, then automatically it sets the 2 in this, because this grep is live, so it doesn't matter, I can say hello, and then it has this body text, but if I type a number, then it sets it automatically to this. So that's really super handy to kind of create this type of detailing in here. Yeah. So, are there any questions about this kind of a short preview on what you can do with grep? Or is everyone already almost dying out behind their screens and?
Well, I went to the toilet for a little bit, so I kind of missed it.
Yeah.
What was the punctuation? Like I wanted to do that too, and I'm looking at symbols, or was it markers?
It's this POSIX. So you actually wait. I'm going to show you again. So in my paragraph style, if I go to the grep, you have this. Ah yeah, it's probably, it falls off in the bottom. Let's see if I... It's hard to... Let's say that because this is the lowest that you can get in my screen now, it is a... it's called POSIX.
Okay.
So it's the almost
the last one, I found it, the last.
Yeah, and there you can choose these.
The one with punched.
Yeah. Somehow I cannot scale my paragraph style options box any smaller, or else I could have probably kind of showed it better. But so yeah, there in this POSIX there you can find like lowercase, get me all the lowercase, all the uppercase, so you can really specify words, but also like case sensitive or match a word before or behind, or there's variables that give you some kind of insight on, so you can find specific characters, markers, even white spaces, which types of quotation marks, variables that we also discussed last week, so you can even like put a grep only specifically in there. Wildcards is also because you can also say any digit or any letter that starts with a word, or like on the start of a paragraph, because you have location, you can say the beginning of the word, any lowercase letter, and then become. So you can, if you're smart in how you can construct these little kind of grep codes, or copy paste some stuff that you find on the web, because there are some really good cheat sheets. You can do basically a lot of stuff in there. But yeah, I tend to use a lot of let's say either the punctuation or specific marks that I kind of change In this case, I now set it to uppercase. So, you know, here you, for instance, see now that that every uppercase has all of a sudden gets a different style sheet. So even here, if I now would type, oh, I'm going to correct this into a capital C, then instantly it changes it into this character style C. Okay, is that a bit clear? For instance, little gestures like, for instance, I get often I have a text and then the text, let's say, has a something like this. So there's like this kind of thought mark, or what should be a thought mark, but it's actually in the content just placed as a simple dash, or sometimes even editors place it like this. Oh yeah, this is not a dash, but this is meant as an end dash. So you go into the details of also kind of using this find and change. And to really organize it in such a way that it makes it properly, so you can just say, okay, find space, a dash, and a space, because think about, if you don't find the spaces around it, it will change every hyphen in between words, and your editor will not be happy if they all disappear. So I'm really finding the combination, the most logical combination. If the combination requires that there is a space before or a space behind, then also find those. And then I can tweak it and I can say, you know what, I'm going to use a thin space an M dash, which is the longest kind of dash, and another thin space, to optically kind of nicely tweak it in that it doesn't create a lot of kind of gaps. And there's some little systems like in Dutch we tend to use often kind of a space before and after, but for instance if you would place it in more American English, they actually don't even use spaces before and after an M dash. But I usually take a kind of a thin space that optically nicely kind of marks it a bit. So I can just say, oh, where is this? Now I probably understood why this find and change is kind of like being annoying, is because probably it cannot find a page because I'm working in my master page. Yes, of course, that could be it. So that makes maybe a bit more sense also why my nice example didn't work out. So in this case I'm looking for space dash space and I want to change it to thin space M dash thin space. So find the next one. You see it found it, and then change. Done. So in my let's say in my hidden under type I have all the way in the bottom hide or show the hidden characters. That gives me this view that I see this is a space where you see a dot, and this is also a space, but it's a thin space with this little kind of accent on top. So optically it kind of makes it a more kind of thinner space than when it would have this normal space. You can also even say insert white spaces. Can also say a hair space, which is even more thinner. So those are little kind of stylistic tweaks that actually look kind of silly, like why would we kind of discuss a different type of space? But for proper typesetting and the overall quality of the look and feel of your text, you will notice that the more you get a grip on these little tweaks, the better your text will start to look. Okay. So basically, that is, let's say, a little bit extra on some of the find and replace stuff, and an additional kind of example of how GREP can be beneficial, and this find and replace be beneficial for you. Then I think one of the last things that I wanted to kind of show you guys was to use the data merge, because it's also interesting. That kind of taps into something that we can, in a slightly different manner, can also show you what you can do in a similar level when it comes to Adobe XD next week. So basically, to understand a little bit of how this works, I'm gonna try to find it. No, I'm gonna do it just from scratch. Okay, now I'm working here in this new page that I just kind of created, and basically I want to import and play around with some data. So one thing is to import a text and get the italics straight away into place. Another thing is to kind of use data. Under Window, under Utilities, there's a little tab called Datamerge. And so what it requires and asks is that you pick a data source from the panel menu, and then you have, let's say, the core structure of how you could kind of map them. So as an example, I'm going to show you where is it? Okay, I have a list here of a library, and this is from a library in Sao Paulo in Brazil that I'm working with, and we're kind of setting up a whole new database for it, so I'm kind of testing some stuff on this as well. So what you see here is a spreadsheet in Google Sheets, and I accidentally typed here. So we have a spreadsheet that always starts, and it has a first column line or row line. So this is a kind of a basic kind of structure that probably all of you have seen before in Excel or work with sheets. So in this first line, which is really important, you actually kind of state what kind of data we're seeing or using. So in this case, we have a title, author, author last name, volume, idioma, which is Portuguese for the language, the country, edition, in which year, which library, and there's an extra thing that I think is not tag Portuguese, tag English, not being used right now. So what we have here is that we're going to use to import this data all in once, and that we have the ability to also play around with it. And I'm going to show you a little bit here. Library, just finding the correct. So what you can do is that when you export this, you can download this as a comma separated value or tab separated value. There's a little bit of a problem here because we actually want to have a .csv file, but the standard way of how Google Sheets exports this comma separated way is on a UTF-8 processing. So in this case, if I'm now going to show you what I just downloaded, is that so basically what I have here is the same table, but actually separated into columns. So it knows title, comma, author, author last name. And so every time there's, let's say, a comma switch, it knows in which row this content belongs to. But there's a difference that, let's say, in this case, there's also material that is set to Portuguese, which has a different type of, let's say, there's a lot of punctuation and different character accents in there, and they get lost in a specific type formatting. So what we do here is that we're gonna download this as a tab separated value. And once that is done, no, we don't want this. It's almost a similar text file. If you open this up in text editor, it will just kind of show you like this, but instead of the commas, it changed this into tabs. And what I now do is a bit of a hack, but it's strange, but believe me, there's some issues sometimes with certain programs, is that I can say duplicate, and then I'm gonna say I'm not gonna change this, which gives me this dialog here, and then only in this section I can change the Unicode from 8 and set it to 16. And call it what I want, and dot comma separated file, and let's put it here. Just leave it here. Okay. So now I have a comma separated value that I can use. So if I now kind of move back to my InDesign, I can set this source, this data source here, and I'm going to list this here. This is the last one. It's this comma separated value, okay. And the great thing is that now all of a sudden InDesign gives me the option that I have everything that was in the row in the top set here as, let's say, kind of a tag system. So what I can do in this case is that I'm going to just quickly place this here. And you actually kind of need to do this on a single page, because we're actually going to import and the system will actually generate new pages for us. So I'm going to save this file. Okay, so I have a single page here, and I'm going back to my Datamerge. Where are you? Here, yeah. So what I can do now, combined with the paragraph styles and everything that I already made, is I can drag a text box here and say, oh, I want to have a title here. Want to have an author, and maybe I want to have the author last name in there. Oh yeah, maybe author, and maybe a space in between author last name. So in this case, I can determine a layout already. Could be headlines, could be body text, could be footnotes. In this case, it's really more of a data list. And combined with this, I can say, okay, this title will have title, and I'm going to take my character style off. So, and with this in mind, I can even use a preview. So if I put it on preview, you already see that it automatically fetches the first row of that spreadsheet. And so the title, first name, and his last name. So you can really kind of like do a full import on this. And I can also tab through, so the second column, or the third, so you can go through this entire data set and use that actually to automate all the imports of different materials inside your book. So basically, if you kind of use this kind of smartly, you can, of course, almost make a Google Sheet and then say, on these paragraphs, I'm going to put them in this column, I'm going to put the titles here, I'm going to put the footnotes here, so that even like collectively you could kind of import everything and already put them on your masters the way you want. And it's especially interesting when there's, let's say, content that continues to repeat. So if for instance, a catalog or a book where a lot of author names with page numbers and details about publishers kind of reappear, especially for this kind of lines, then it's super interesting. And every time you can also repeat the set and give it another format. So I could make, let's say, separate pages with this content here, but I could also later on put everything in a list and then run it completely down. And get a completely different formatting, because if I would give, let's say, this is a, put it back in the body text, there's something here. Ah yeah, because it's capital, there's still even the GREP on top, so the GREP makes the capitals turn into a into the character style that we made. But I can also formulate later that I want to have this name, comma, author, comma, publishing, it's not there, comma, country, comma, edition, year. You see, then all of a sudden GREP says, hey, this is not in capitals, so I'm going to put this back on the normal body text. So you can kind of string this up, and then you could also kind of enlist it. So in one way, you could make a whole page turn into one type of layout, but you can also use this to kind of generate an index, for instance. So if I put this back into title, wait. It would do this. Okay. Any questions so far about kind of the basic? I know there's a lot of things and it goes pretty fast. You can look it back and for those, you know, I can kind of run through and do this again in class again later on. But it's just kind of like to show you that from a Google Sheet, when you download and save it as a comma-separated value, import and save it under CVS, but then change it actually in a UTF-8, which allows for to keep the accent graves, accent aigus in your text. So that you can then actually have the whole top line, the top row of your Excel sheet listed as a data entry point, and you can use them in your layout. And basically, once that has the connection between the sheet and InDesign, you can start really generating a publication or pages with this. So I now had the preview modus on, so this preview. So if I would take it out, this is how it looks. And if I would just say, okay, create merge document, I get this extra tab, and I can say a single record or multiple records. So in a single record, what it does is that it just generates one page for each row. So let's just, and this is for the multiple record, so okay. Probably I should have kind of specified, because you already see here that this specific Excel sheet has 5,000 rows, so maybe making a book right now with 5,000 pages is maybe not the best thing to do. So maybe I can just say, well, as a range, let's go from 1 to 50. Okay. Okay. So that's already done, you know? So it's a couple of seconds, and then you have a new document which has, if I go to my pages, you see 50 pages. So every page now, if I just tap through, you see that all the content is there and changing for every page. Pretty cool. So you can use this to do whatever you want. On the other hand, I can also say I want to have multiple records. So basically what that does is that everywhere that you are being using these GREP entry points, it will kind of make a collection and think about the space you're using for this. So if I turn this back into a body text, and so now I made this text box this size. Let's just minimize it a bit, but just to get a sense, is that in the data merge I can say this preview, and when I put the preview on here, I can also set this to multiple records and preview multiple record layout, and then you can see that the height of that text box defines the repetition. So we have now these two boxes, and somehow I can put this into also defining, let's say, my margins for that. So I can say how much does it need to go from the top or start. I can have space between the columns like this. So basically you can kind of like form it as a complete setup before you run it. But if I want to have like really a lot of information and almost use it in the end as a kind of an index, maybe it is nicer to just say, okay, let's use 5 to 45, multiple records, okay. And so in this way you can actually just kind of make them kind of like in one go. So let's just run that and see. There's probably, I see there's already something buggy going on here. Okay, close. So what it does, it made a new file in only just one page. But apparently there were some, you see, probably some pretty long words that didn't fit, so it needed to kind of do this. But the strange thing, of course, is that it kind of repeated one row here. So that is part of the settings. So we have title, author, publication, country, and edition. And basically, I think that what helps here is that when we run this from a master page, like this, and I'm gonna try to run it again. Let's see what it does. Let's take some more, 300. $600. So now it created 22 pages of listings. And still there is a bug going on, which we're gonna find out. But just to give you an example, so you can like really get a lot of stuff in here and then actually edit it or completely layout it. So actually to make something on a page level or on a list level, the content and actually the whole data file is actually is exactly the same. Okay? And for instance, I'm gonna, where do I have have it. I'm gonna show you. So for instance, this book that I made for the graduation show of the Design Academy, that was for last year. This entire book was also made by using this feature. So there was one extremely complex feature of, let's say, all the student listing, all the department names, the title of their works, all this kind of repetition was kind of organized in one massive Google Sheet. And even the introduction, so like this kind of table of contents were part of the same structure. So in certain you would say name, title, and then have the page number. But the same information could lead up to having, for instance, their projects. So you have like all this information that runs in the bottom between like, oh, this is part of the identity, the title, the name, and there were like underneath in this folding of these pages, there were like texts about their projects. They were also auto-generated or put into place. So there was like this part alone with like, I think almost 300 pages, which was set in that manner. And the same for the other part, which is more the master section. So here I kind of used the same text and also the titles and everything to place them here, all the way up to the end where you have kind of credits and listing of the staff and etc. It's almost like a telephone book, also all kind of auto-generated in this settings. Just to kind of show you, to give you an idea of how extremely kind of powerful it is not to have to do this all kind of manually. Okay. I think that everyone should probably be saturated again with this amount of technical information. Are there any questions so far? You can also kind of rewatch stuff or kind of make a note for next week if you run into things that you think, how is this? So since I was actually planning to do this a bit today, but that was impossible for not coming over, I would like you to continue to try to implement as much as the stuff that I kind of was babbling about today in this default InDesign question file that you're making. So I'm not asking you to design anything. I'm just kind of want you to show me next week a template that might be able to work for you, that just has the core of these paragraph styles, a baseline grid, object styles. You could think of an example where maybe a specific grep could be useful, but I don't think that it taps into this very directly, but I would definitely just kind of experiment with it. So use the time for, I don't want to load you up with a lot of, like really giving you an assignment at this point, but see this more as a kind of a wise momentum to kind of experiment and try to build something that hopefully you can kind of work with for the rest of the year. That's actually the only thing that I want to get out of there, so that if when we start to work on a project after the sprints that will continue to run through until the Christmas holiday, you're gonna need it. Okay? Okay. Anyone else that still has something or has a question? No?
I think we covered a lot, so I don't know if we could add anything.
Yeah. No. Cool. Very clear. Perfect. Then let's just wrap it up, and then you know, if you do have questions in between, you can always send me a mail. Then I can always try to respond in between. And if not, then let's start next week at school, hopefully, with as most of you as possible. And then I would like to kind of start with this kind of do kind of a round questioning of see how these documents are looking into, look into them, and then continue with our with XD. Okay. Okay. Hey, thank you, and have fun this week. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, I will be in school tomorrow as well, probably, because there's the green light for the graduation year. So if something comes up, then you can also maybe catch me there. Yeah?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank
See you next week. Ciao.
Bye.